Hey guys, welcome to today's video where we're going to be going over my NFL Week 14 game picks. We're going to be diving into each game, breaking it down, and just figuring out who's going to win and who's going to lose in Week 14. Before we get started, please drop a like and a sub. It really helps my channel grow. I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you don't know already, I've been writing some articles for the updog.com, which is basically a sports article website where anyone under the age of 21 can write about any sports topic that they're interested in. If y'all are interested in writing or reading some of the articles up on the updog.com, I'll leave a link to that down below in the description. But now let's just dive right in, and I hope you enjoy. So before we get started on talking about NFL Week 14 game picks, I'm just going to give you the big board here, and these are going to be the games this week. We're going to start with the Thursday night primetime game between the Patriots and the Los Angeles Rams. Now, this is going to be a fun one. The Patriots are coming off a very, very big win last week against the Chargers, 45-0, led by a strong defensive game as well as a good game from Cam Newton, who rushed for 2 touchdowns. The Rams are also coming off a pretty big game too, beating the Cardinals on the road 38-28. I think the Rams are going to take this one. They're simply the better team than the Patriots, and although the Patriots are playing some inspired football right now behind Cam Newton and Bill Belichick, I mean, the Rams have just more talent and more offense and just better players on their roster. Sean McVay is going to cook something up special, and although this is another Belichick versus McVay matchup, I think the Rams at home, primetime football game, I think they're going to win this one. I just don't think the Patriots have enough talent to keep up with the Rams. I mean, yes, Damian Harris is playing some solid football at running back. At the end of the day, though, I just don't love the wide receiver options the Patriots have. It's going to be a very run-heavy offense versus a pretty solid run defense led by Aaron Donald. And at the end of the day, I think the Patriots defense won't be able to stop a pretty good offense in the Rams with Jared Goff, as well as Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, who have been playing some excellent football of late. So for the primetime game, I'm going to have the Rams taking that one, and you can see that on the big board there. Next one is probably going to be one of the easier ones of the week between the Titans and the Jags. So Titans lost a pretty big one last week to the Browns, and the Jags were very much in that game against the Vikings last week. So I still think the Titans will win this one, right? They're on that verge of that playoff picture. They're in the playoffs currently. As the playoff picture stands, and the Jags only have one win on the season. And although they have shocked a few teams at times this season, obviously they beat the Colts week 1. They were very, very neck and neck with the Vikings last week. They were neck and neck earlier in the year with teams like the Packers. So I don't think this Titans team is going to be able to go into Jacksonville and just completely wipe out the Jags. But at the end of the day, I think they'll win pretty easily. But it's still going to be a challenge. It's not going to be a very easy game for them. They're going to have to really run the football effectively. Derrick Henry didn't have one of the days that we've seen from Derrick Henry of late last week. So really big game for the Titans trying to get back on track on the road against the Jags. So as you can see, the big board here, I have the Titans winning that one. Now, Bucs and Vikings. This is going to be a fun matchup here in Tampa Bay. I think the Bucs will be able to win it. Obviously, the Vikings didn't do too well against the Jags last week. They only won by 3 points. And the Bucs are coming off the bye week. They're feeling fresh, well, and rejuvenated. I think they're going to take this one against Minnesota. Also, they're playing at home. They're going to have their weapons. Brady's going to be rested. Their offense is going to be nice and rested. And I think that defense is fantastic too. So overall, I think this Bucs team is going to be fantastic next week against the Vikings. So let's just dive right back to the big board for a second. And here we go, right? So now we're going to have the Chiefs and the Dolphins. So the Dolphins are playing some very good football right now. They're 8-4. Obviously, the Chiefs, they only have 1 loss on the season. And I think the Chiefs will win this one, even though I am a Dolphins fan. At the end of the day, the Chiefs are an absolute juggernaut. And although the Dolphins are playing some really good defensive football, obviously Xavier Howard is in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation with 8 interceptions on the year, as well as they've got some really good other players on that defense, like Emmanuel Ogbah, Kyle Van Noy, Nick Needham is showing up. The Chiefs' offense is just a whole nother breed. They're really going to have to get to the quarterback without really blitzing, and that's something that Brian Flores loves to do. He blitzes the 4th most out of any other team in the NFL, somewhere near 40%. I think that's like 38.6% of the time. So I think if they're able to cut back on that but still get pressure, then they might have a chance. But this Chiefs offense is just ridiculous. Plus, I mean, Tua's been playing some really good football. The offense for the Dolphins has been a little bit up and down of late. But if they get the run game going, I think they'll be in the game. It's just that defense that's going to really have to hold the Chiefs to points. And at the end of the day, the Dolphins defense has been really good at creating turnovers and creating chaos and restricting other teams to points. But I mean, the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes are a whole nother story. So I think the Chiefs will win this one, but I think the Dolphins will be in this game to an extent. Now, though, let's go back to the big board before we move on to the next matchup between the Broncos and the Panthers. So Broncos-Panthers here. This is going to be an interesting one. Obviously, the Broncos were definitely much in that Chiefs game last week, but the Panthers are going to be off the bye week. Hopefully, they're going to get CMC back. And hopefully they'll get some of their other injured players back too. I think this is a toss-up. Melvin Gordon looked pretty good last week too. But I think Carolina will win this one. I just think Carolina, if they can get Christian McCaffrey back especially, then that's going to be huge for them. And I think their wide receivers are going to run all over this Broncos secondary. I don't really love the Broncos secondary. Yeah, they've got some good safeties, but at corner they're pretty thin after A.J. Boye. So I think the Panthers wide receivers and Teddy Bridgewater are going to really have a fun day next week against the Broncos. So I've had the Panthers winning that one, and now let's dive to the next one. Houston and the Bears. This is going to be an interesting matchup. Houston obviously coming off a loss last week against the Colts. Tough loss for Deshaun Watson. You could see him there on the sideline after last week's game, just sitting there. And for the Bears, also another very tough loss. Mitch Trubisky. Wow. I mean, the Bears look like a total mess. Matt Nagy does not have them playing really good football right now. But Houston and Chicago, two interesting teams, two teams that are definitely on the decline with some promise. I mean, obviously the Bears have a good defense. Texans have some promise at offense with Deshaun Watson. And I think that the Texans will take this one. I mean, the Bears are a mess, and I really mean that. They are an absolute mess. And although Matt Nagy, I mean, if he calls himself an offensive guru, he should be able to put up at least 25 points against this Texans defense, which basically has no corners and is just absolutely horrendous. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think the Texans will win this one. Deshaun Watson's the X factor. He's going to be the best player in this game. And I mean, if he's on his game, and he was on his game last week, I thought he played pretty well. So I think at the end of the day, Deshaun Watson is going to carry the Texans to a win in Chicago. Now, though, let's move on back to the big board. There you see the Texans beating the Bears, and now we're going to move to the Cardinals and the Giants. Obviously, Giants coming off a huge win last week against the Seahawks. That was absolutely massive for their playoff hopes, but I think they're going to fall short against the Cardinals. I mean, the Cardinals, yes, they're coming off back-to-back losses from the Patriots and last week with the Rams, but they're playing really good offensive football this season. So I think they'll hopefully rebound against the Giants, at least for Cardinals fans. And although the Giants did come off that big win last week in Seattle, I mean, I don't think they're going to be able to consistently do that. There is some talk that Daniel Jones may be able to come back. I still don't think that'll matter for them. I just think this Cardinals offense with DeAndre Hopkins is going to be too much. Although James Bradbury is having a really good season, he'll be matched up on DeAndre Hopkins. Kyler Murray's playing well so far this year. And yeah, he's had some struggles the past two games, but overall, Cliff Kingsbury and this Cardinals team is going to really have a good opportunity to win in MetLife in Week 14. However, I think the Giants are definitely an upset candidate. Obviously, they're playing some good football after last week, and if they can get Daniel Jones back, maybe they have a chance, but I have the Cardinals. Now, though, let's just go right back to the big board here. And now let's go Cowboys and Bengals. For me, this is going to be an easy one with the Cowboys taking the dub here. The Bengals are an absolute mess without Joe Burrow, without Joe Mixon, and that O-line doesn't look very good. They gave up a lot of sacks to a Miami Dolphins defense that's been playing some good football, but also, I mean, the Bengals just look like a mess. Zach Taylor just does not look like their answer at head coach. And although Mike McCarthy isn't necessarily having a good season with the Cowboys, obviously they've had injuries, but I think they're going to be able to go all over this Bengals defense. This Bengals defense has been struggling of late. They don't really have that many great players. Yes, Jesse Bates is having quietly a very, very good season, one of the most underrated safeties in the NFL. But at the end of the day, the Cowboys offense is just too much to handle when you've got really good players and really good stars all over the place. Yes, the offensive line is definitely an issue for the Cowboys. I mean, they've got injuries all over the field. But with Andy Dalton and Ezekiel Elliott, they've got still good wide receivers. I think this Cowboys offense will be able to take the Cowboys past the Bengals. So with that said, let's go back to the big board there. We're halfway through the games. And now let's go to Colts and the Raiders. This is going to be a very important playoff matchup. Obviously, the Raiders right now are on the outside of the playoff conversation. The Colts are on the inside of the playoff conversation. But the Raiders' Hail Mary last week to Henry Ruggs kept them in that conversation. I think the Colts will take this one. The Raiders have been playing some really up and down football of late. Obviously, earlier this season, they beat the Chiefs. They almost beat the Chiefs again. But the past 2 weeks, the Raiders football that we have seen earlier in the year was just not there. They lost real big to the Atlanta Falcons, and last week they barely beat the Jets. They had to beat them on the last play of the game, basically. So I just am confident in this Colts team that's playing some solid football of late. They've been pretty good of late, and with Jonathan Taylor back, and Phillip Rivers looking better as the year has progressed at times. T.Y. Hilton showed up last week. He showed up each of the last 2 weeks. So that's a good sign for this Colts offense. And of course, this Colts defense is one of the best in the NFL. So against a Raiders offense and a Raiders defense that has been struggling of late, I think this Colts team will be able to get the win. So now, though, let's move back to the big board. There you go. Those are the matchups. And now let's go to the Jets and the Seahawks. For me, this is probably going to be one of the easier ones of the week. And although the Seattle Seahawks are coming off a loss to the New York Giants, they're still the Seattle Seahawks. They're still one of the better teams in the NFL. And they'd definitely be in the top 10 of my power rankings right now. So the Jets right now, for me, they're the worst team in the league. And in Seattle, I think it's going to be a tough game for New York. And I think it's going to be, a game that Seattle's really going to need to really show that they can still play. I mean, they're going to need to win this one, but they're going to need to win this one emphatically to show that they've still got it. Obviously, coming off that tough loss last week to the Giants. So I think the Seahawks can win this one pretty easily. It's going to be good for them, good for their playoff hopes, good for their playoff outlook. And at the end of the day, they just need this win very, very much. Now, though, let's go back to the big board and let's move to the Packers and the Lions. So Packers and Lions here, this is going to be a very important game for the Lions. They're going to need to win this one if they want to stay in that playoff race, but I think the Packers will just be too much. I think the Packers are just one of the better football teams in the NFL right now. I probably have them number 3 or number 4 in my power rankings, in that range with teams like the Chiefs as well as the Saints or the Steelers in that conversation. Probably a tier below the Chiefs and the Steelers, but the Packers are playing some really good football. Aaron Rodgers is turning back the clock. Aaron Jones hit a big run last week for a touchdown. Devontae Adams is arguably the best receiver in all of football, and the Lions just aren't going to be able to compete with that. I just don't think they're going to be able to compete with that. It's going to be interesting to see if they can get DeAndre Swift back on the field. He's missed the past few weeks due to injury. He got a concussion. He wasn't able to get back last week, which was kind of tough for my fantasy team, but that's a whole nother story. So I think the Packers will be able to win this one, even though they're going to be on the road. Rodgers historically plays very well in Detroit, and although it's going to be fun to see the Packers and the Lions square off, I think the Packers will be getting the win. Now, though, let's move to the Falcons and the Chargers. So originally, I wanted to have the Falcons win this game, and then I want to have the Chargers win this game. Actually, before I finally produce my videos, especially for my game pick videos, I actually start the process a week before. So I was looking at the schedule, and I'm like, I think the Chargers will win this one. But after last week rather, where the Chargers absolutely got clobbered by the Patriots 45-0, I'd be insane to say the Chargers are going to win this one. Yes, both teams are struggling defensively, but these teams have good offenses. Yes, the Chargers were shut out last week, but the Chargers have been a better offense during the season with Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler and Justin Herbert. I think they'll get back on track with the Falcons, but the Falcons are going to win this one. I mean, Julio's back. Calvin Ridley's playing well. They've got Matt Ryan. And the defense is going to be able to do enough against a Chargers team that has struggled in the past few weeks. I mean, they struggled last week against the Patriots, struggled 2 weeks ago against the Bills. So I think the Falcons will win this one. It'll be a close one, but I think the Falcons will win it just because of their ability to score and their consistency in the past few weeks. They've been a little bit better than the Chargers have been in the past few weeks. So based off of recent success, I'm going to have the Falcons winning this one against the Chargers in LA. So with that said, we're going to have 4 more matchups, and we're going to start with Washington and the 49ers. So this is going to be a huge game for both teams, really big in the playoff push. Obviously, Washington is in that playoff picture when it comes to the NFC East. The 49ers are obviously in that playoff picture when it comes to the 6th or 7th seed. I think it's going to be really the 7th seeds. That's going to be the option for them in the NFC. I think the 49ers will win this one easily. No, I think it'll still be a struggle. Maybe they'll get George Kittle back this game. There has been some speculation that he might be back for the last few weeks of the season because the 49ers are in the playoff race, and I still think they're going to win no matter what, even if he's not playing or is playing on the field. They're just simply coached better, and they've simply got better players. And I don't think that really surprises anyone. I mean, yes, shout out to Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio with the job that they have done this season. But at the end of the day, Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh and the guys in San Francisco have done a fantastic job over the past few seasons. So I think based off of that, and although the 49ers are going to run into a pretty solid defense in Washington, I just think the 49ers are a better team than Washington, and I think they're going to need it more. Washington, I think, is definitely in this game, and that's definitely going to be a surprise. And definitely, this is an upset alert, I think. A possible upset alert with Washington, perhaps winning this game. But I think I've got to give it to the 49ers here. Obviously, with that experience, Washington's still a very young team. But, I mean, if the 49ers are able to score some points and just hold that Washington offense back, which really doesn't have that many weapons after Terry McLaurin, I think that the San Francisco team will be able to get the win. Now, though, let's go to the Saints and the Eagles. This is going to be pretty easy here with the New Orleans Saints winning this one. Taysom Hill has been playing fantastic. The Eagles' quarterback situation is horrendous. Their offense can't get going. This team is in shambles. And although they did put up a little bit of a spirited performance in Green Bay last week in the second half, after Hurts came in, the Saints team is a top 5 team in the NFL. They're playing some really good football defensively, and Taysom Hill has them playing really good football offensively too. So I think the Saints will win this one, even though they're playing in Philadelphia. Now, though, let's go to the Steelers and the Bills. So this is going to be the prime time Sunday game, and wow, is this going to be an important game for the AFC playoff picture. Not only is it important for the AFC East and for the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Patriots trying to get that first seed in the AFC East, but it's important for the first seed in the AFC. I mean, if the Steelers lose this one, then the Chiefs are definitely going to be favorites to get that first seed. So very important game here. But I think even though this game's in Buffalo, I want to have the Steelers win this game. I think they'll be able to take care of the Bills. It's going to be a defensive battle. Offensively, these teams are both very solid. I mean, the Steelers are putting up a lot of points. The Bills are putting up a lot of points. But when it comes to defense, the Steelers are on another level than the Bills. If this had been last season, maybe the Bills would have had a better defense. Obviously, the Steelers did not have good offense last year after Big Ben went down. But this year, the Steelers have a good offense, really, really good defense. And the Bills, although they have a great offense, their defense has not played it to the level that it was last year. So I'm going to have the Steelers take this one against the Bills in Week 14. Very important game, and this is one to circle on your calendars. This is my favorite game of the week, and it's something I'm really excited about. Finally, let's go to the Ravens and the Browns. So the Browns are playing great football. The Ravens have definitely been up and down of late, but I think the Ravens are going to come into Cleveland and win this game. So here's my thinking. Although the Ravens have been up and down on offense and up and down on defense over the past few weeks, they still have one of the best defenses in the NFL. And the Browns, although they've been up and down too this season, they're still one of the better teams in the NFL, definitely in the top 12 of my power rankings right now. And they're playing some really good football. Obviously, Baker Mayfield had 4 touchdowns last week in the first half. Their running game is playing really well with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, who are one of the best 1-2 punches in the NFL. And at the end of the day, I think this Browns team is definitely a threat. Myles Garrett is playing good football. I mean, this Browns squad is a very good football team. You need to understand that. This is not the Cleveland Browns that we've seen over the past 10 years. This is the Cleveland Browns that, yes, I don't know if they'll win their first playoff game. If they make the playoffs, that's definitely not set in stone yet. But I still think this is a good Browns squad. But at the end of the day, the Ravens came in Week 1, I think, to the Browns in Baltimore and absolutely clobbered them like 38-6. So although I don't think the Ravens will do that this time, the Browns are definitely playing better football right now. The Ravens are just more desperate than the Browns for a win here. They really need this win to stay in that playoff hunt, stay in that playoff chase. And for that reason, I'm going to have the Ravens and Lamar Jackson take the dub in Cleveland. I think this will be a very good game, too. All the AFC North matchups this year have been pretty solid, especially the primetime ones. And this is going to be the Monday night game. So I'm pretty excited for this one, too. So at the end of the day, that's going to wrap it up here. If you just want to take a look at the big board one more time, Rams, Titans, Bucks, Chiefs, Panthers, Texans, Cardinals, Cowboys, Colts, Seahawks, Packers, Falcons, Washington losing that one. The 49ers will win that one. The Saints, the Steelers, and the Ravens all winning. And at the end of the day, I think some of the matchups that you guys should really look at and see, maybe there could be a few upsets that I didn't pick, is definitely the Chargers and the Falcons. That one could probably be a swing game. Broncos and Panthers is probably a swing game. I like the Texans against the Bears. I'm going to stick with that. But also watch the Giants and the Cardinals and Washington against the 49ers. That's definitely going to be one that is going to be interesting to watch. But at the end of the day, the game of the week for me is going to be the Steelers and the Bills. Really exciting game. But there's a lot of good matchups on this Week 14 slate. So with that, that's going to end the video here today. Did you agree with my analysis and my game picks? Why or why not? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section down below. Also, if you're new around here, I'd really appreciate if you dropped a like and a sub. It really helps my channel grow. It just really would mean a lot to me. And at the end of the day, I hope you enjoyed the video. And until next time, see ya.